So today's random topic is soup.
Soup.
Yes, I love soup. How about you?
Yeah, I love soup too. And one of my favorite things about soup is you can eat it for every meal. You can have soup for breakfast, or soup for lunch, or soup for dinner.
You're weird. I would never have soup for breakfast.
Oh, I love soup for breakfast. Maybe it's because I lived in Korea, and in Korea, it's not weird to have soup for breakfast.
I lived there too, but I still didn't eat soup for breakfast. But yes, I can see where you're coming from.
One of my favorite things to do on a weekend is go out and eat pho. And this is a type of Vietnamese soup. And if you're a Vietnamese listener, I know my pronunciation of that word is wrong. But what I like to do is go and eat pho for breakfast on a Saturday or Sunday.
That's interesting. I love pho, but I wouldn't eat it for breakfast.
When our friends go out for brunch, they go for bagels and pancakes and eggs, and we go for pho.
That's cool. It's different.
Yeah. So what are your favorite things about soup, Harp?
Well, I love soup because it's so comforting, and as most of our listeners know, Canada is cold for a lot of the year, and it's just so nice when you come in from the cold and you have a nice bowl of soup. It's really hot. It just feels so good.
And the type of soup that I like to eat in the winter is a good hearty soup.
Yeah, I really like all sorts of soups, like a light soup with just a broth with a couple of little vegetables, or something really thick and stew-like. I have to be honest, I really love soup.
Now, when people are sick in Canada, if they have a cold or the sniffles, the go-to feel-good food is a bowl of chicken noodle soup.
Yep, and that's what I do, but I like one specific type, which is the Campbell's chicken noodle soup in the can, the very traditional type with the really small noodles. That's what I like to eat. Nothing fancy. I don't need homemade. If I don't feel well, that's what I like to eat.
You know, I'm the same way. And it's strange because these days I usually try to avoid the canned soup. If I can make a soup myself, I would prefer to do that. But when I'm sick, I always go for the same type of Campbell's soup. And I think it's because when I was younger, my mom gave me that soup and it just feels like home, I guess.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean. And if I actually think about kind of my favorite comfort food, not even when I'm sick, but just in general, it's for me dal, which is a lentil soup, an Indian style lentil soup. And just the way my mom made it, I love it, and it makes me just feel so comforted. And it's one of the dishes that my mom always has to make when I go home to visit.
That does sound good. So what about you, though? I know you like to cook as well. You make probably dal, too. But are there any other soups that you like to cook?
I really like to try different soups, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not very good at making soup.
Really?
You know, they say the best test for whether a chef is good or not is by tasting their soup.
You know, I think you're right. It is a sign of a good chef if they can make a good soup.
Yeah, because it's so simple, but it's so hard to get it right.
And you have to have a lot of patience when you're making soup. If you make soup from scratch, from the very start, you need to boil bones from an animal to make your broth, right? And this takes a long time. You can boil these things all day long.
Yep. It requires patience and time, and it always requires that little touch. You know, like I can make an okay soup, but to make a delicious soup, I find it's really hard.
It's true. And so what I do is I take a shortcut and go to the grocery store and just buy my broth.
Yeah, but even even when I do that, I'm still not very good at making soup. It's hard for me, for example, if I want to make a soup like a butternut squash soup, to get the right ratio, to make it the right consistency so it's not too thick or it's not too thin, and the right level of salt, and you want to have other delicate flavors in there, but you don't want it to be overpowering. I think there's a little bit of magic to it.
Yeah, the perfect soup is something we always try to find, right? But like you said, it's difficult to actually make in your own home.
What's your favorite soup to make?
Oh, my favorite soup to make. Well, I usually always make just a vegetable soup. And I don't know if this counts as a soup, but it's similar to a soup. I like to make a chili.
Ah, yes, I make chili as well. But again, not fantastic.
Really? Well, sometime I'll show you how to make my chili because it's pretty good, I think.
Okay, you'll have to show me for sure.
And, soup is great all times of year. We are talking about nice hearty soups in the winter. I'm wondering, have you ever had an ice soup in the summer?
I've had a cold soup, like a gazpacho. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, like a gazpacho. I forgot about that one too. I mentioned earlier that I lived in Korea, and over there they have a cold noodle soup that actually has pieces of ice in it, and it's very refreshing on a hot day.
Oh, I've never had that, but yes, that does sound like it would be really good when it's really hot. But I'm willing to eat a hot soup in the summer as well.
Yeah, I think if a soup is delicious, it's delicious all year round, really.
Yeah. But I have a friend who really does not like soup.
Really? Doesn't like soup?
Yeah, he thinks it's like drinking a cup of water. It's just liquid. There's no substance to it.
Yeah, I could understand that point of view. Maybe for a soup that's not very filling, like maybe a tomato soup. But there's a lot of soups that have tons and tons of vegetables and meats and noodles and lots of stuff. It's like a meal.
Yeah, no, his wife makes lots of delicious soups and she shares them with me all the time, but he doesn't like to eat them. I think he's crazy.
Well, more soup for you, right?
Exactly.
So it's all good.